Right, there we go. February 3rd already. Can't believe I don't know what happened to January. It just came and went. But one thing that I do actually really like right now is the sun's starting to stay out a little longer. I love that time of year. I hate looking outside at 5 o'clock and having it dark. Can't stand that. But anyway, cool stuff. We can open it up. I heard you guys talking about site pop there. Was there a question or anything I can help out with?
Oh, it was the question I emailed you like 2 days ago about how do I rank higher than that White House guy?
Oh, yeah. When you're trying to beat out an authoritative site like any of the gov sites, a lot of the edu sites, they're given a lot of priority because of that. Other sites that kind of fit in that same mode are authoritative sites like Wikipedia. I know whenever Wikipedia is involved, it's like, oh shit, here we go. You're almost better off to like try and get a page on one of those sites. Like there's a way, I haven't done it myself just because I've got, if you type in my name, I'm all over the place. But for other people, if you've got a common name and you want to really kind of kick everybody's butt and rank at the top, if you can get yourself a private Wikipedia page, like a Wikipedia page about yourself, what you have to do, you have to at least put yourself out as some kind of an authority figure or a sports figure, or, maybe even a podcaster would probably do it. Any kind of somebody with a public persona, so to speak, and they'll set you up a page. So when somebody looks you up, you become now a word or, a phrase, a word phrase inside Wikipedia. That's a really good way to do it. Trying to get your own site to rank above those, that's a whole nother animal. That could be very difficult. And yeah, site pop is a great tool, to pop stuff to the top. But ultimately, you have to have the traffic and all that to justify staying there.
Right.
And that's where those authoritative sites they're really difficult to beat out long term.
Okay.
Cool. But there's always different ways to skin the cat, like if you can get a Wikipedia page, there's guys that actually specialize in that, getting those set up. Because one of the things with Wikipedia is I think you have to go through some kind of an editor that is, he's already an editor in that space to authorize you inside their whole little community. It's a weird deal. I don't know how you become an editor, but I think most of the editor categories are taken. So it's really tough at this point to become a Wikipedia editor or whatever they call themselves, or some special name for it. But if you can, that's awesome. Like sometimes it's almost like in Amazon, you can be a #1 author in Amazon for some obscure category that nobody looks at. And Wikipedia is the same thing. People were trying to become editors for some obscure category that nobody looked at or knew about, just so they could kind of slide in the back door. And then once you're an editor, then you have the power to create content within the Wikipedia universe, that's a really powerful thing. But again, it's a whole animal in itself. I never really got delved into that one. So didn't have the patience. I'm like a pediatrician. I have little patience. Some people get that. All right. So who's up next? I know the last few weeks I've been kind of getting on a train here and not letting you guys have a chance to ask your questions. So here we are. Woody, what do you got for us?
Well, good morning, Captain, and everyone else.
Good morning.
I'm doing this Facebook Live thing on Thursdays at 1 o'clock. So after your your class, but I get good responses, but it's the invites keep going to the same 30 people.
Yep.
We call it the dead pool. These are people I know from the Bronx. These are people I know from rehab. These are, real estate, but they're really not my avatars.
Yeah.
And what would be your suggestion to really just start getting it out? And got a great topic today if you all tune in. It's all about our friend, Mr. Death. So come on in, man. We're going to change the title of the whole circus with the lion. You know anyone that got out of death, Johnny?
Oh, got out of death. I know a couple of people that have skated that. But here's the thing, and this has to do with most social media platforms, which is what you're battling there. Your audience in a social media platform is, unless you're advertising, it's going to be the people that are either following you or friended you or, whatever that particular medium is. So like you had mentioned it yourself, it's your same 30 people that are following you. And if those people didn't pay anything to follow you, they might be just following you because they're your friends and, they think you're cool or whatever. But you're right. They might not be your avatar for what you're trying to sell. So my thought process always goes to the same channel. If I'm going to do something, like if I were going to say, hey, I'm going to do this thing every week, from whatever to whatever time, that's going to be an engineered process for a reason. And if it doesn't fulfill, then I'm going to dump it really fast and get on to something that does get me what I want. So it's like any marketing campaign, you engineer it. There needs to be a reason for everything that you do. And, when you do it that way, and you'll either get results or you won't, but you'll get it fast. You'll typically see results one way or another, and then that will dictate where you go from there. Do you expand upon what you just did, or do you throw it out and try something different? And in marketing, this is business, really. Marketing is just a piece of it. But in business, we're trying to make money. That's the bottom line. No matter how you slice it, if we're not making money, we're not in business. And when you're in business, the way you make money in business is transactions. Business is very transactional. So you have to have something that you're supplying. There has to be a demand for it, obviously. And, if you're not supplying something that is bringing you back monetary value, you're not in business. So, it's like even the IRS has this. Is it a hobby or is it a business? It's a hobby if it doesn't make money. They've clearly defined that. So nothing wrong with hobbies. If you're doing something that makes you happy and you don't need to make money from it, and it, like I said, it makes you happy to do it, don't throw that out. Do it as, just understand that it's entertainment for you. There's certain things.
We're cutting it up, and we're going to be, using those snippets, and when you join the club or whatever membership.
Yeah.
So it's not a waste, and also I'm getting used to being in front of the camera.
Yeah, well, see, there's something. If that's what you want out of it, that's great. Like when Craig did the thing with the guys, I think they were in Arizona. They had the podcast thing, the Rock Your Life podcast or whatever, a radio show. It was promoted as a radio show. And I bought into it, for a year, and it was every week you basically got it to do a radio show, right? Well, it wasn't real radio, it was internet radio. So it was just a podcast. That's all it really was. It was promoted as a radio show. And I looked at it as, okay, a radio show to me is kind of like a book. If you need credibility or you need to connect with people, then that's great. The radio show is a much better way to connect with people than I think the book is. But anyway, so I bought into it, but my strategy was this. My strategy was not to just put any warm body on that radio show. My strategy was to hunt. I used it as a headhunting tool to find other authority figures that I wanted to promote me, and I did a trade with them. So I used it more like a joint venture affiliate partnership. So I would reach out to people and I would say, hey, you know, I would love to promote you on my radio show. And in turn, I would love to have you put me on a webinar, and I'll make you some money in the process. So I'm going to give you exposure and cash. And people love that. They love both those things. They love exposure and they love cash. So I had positioned myself to get what I wanted out of the deal. I didn't want to do a radio show. That was the last thing on earth that I wanted to do every week, was a radio show, right? But I wanted sales. And I knew that these people, these influencers, were the key to promoting me to get sales for me. So I went to work positioning and packaging myself to be what they wanted. They wanted, you know, influencers. They love notoriety. They love exposure. So I'd say, hey, I'm going to put you on my radio show, expose you to a new audience. And then in turn, you put me on a webinar. I will educate and entertain your audience and make you money. So I'm offering them exposure and cash. So that's how I used the radio show. And when it was done, I had listed out all the people that I wanted to do that with. And some of them did it, some of them didn't. You know, it was a numbers game, just like anything else. And at the end of it, I did not renew. Everybody was shocked that I didn't renew. And I'm like, I don't need to renew. I got what I came for. I got everything I wanted out of this. It was highly engineered and it worked. And I was, you know, off to the next thing now. Because you know how I feel about creating jobs for myself, right? That seemed, every time I did it, it seemed like a job. Like, this call is the only thing I do on a regular basis that I don't see as a job, because I like to do it. You know, I like to do this. I like to help you guys. So I don't see this as work at all. But that radio show, it was like a grind. Every week I had to prepare. I had to do all this stuff. And even though they did most of it on the background, you know, they would bring the people on, introduce them, do all the intros, the outros, the commercials. They handled all that stuff. So I didn't really have to do much, but it felt like a job. And if you're, and I was even getting something out of it. I engineered it to be exactly what I wanted. It still felt like that to me. So I can imagine, if, you know, the whole moral of the story here is engineer the stuff to be effective, not just to take up your time. You don't need to be busy. You need to be productive. There's a big difference between productive and busy. Productive is just that. It's got the base word of produce. You're a producer, not a time waster. And, you know, you can waste a lot of time when you don't have a strategy. When you're doing stuff that's not engineered, you can chase your tail a lot and you'll feel the effects of it. And it doesn't feel good most times. So engineer that thing. If you're doing it, engineer it. What do you want out of it? That's one of the things.
Suggestion, Big John. Like, what would you do?
I'd do exactly what I said. I'd figure out what I wanted out of it, and I would engineer it and do it in that way. Dave D, I don't know if you guys know him. He's big in the Glazer Kennedy industry, in that world. He's a famous marketer, right next to Glazier Kennedy, Dan Kennedy and Bill Glazier. And one of the things he said, every time he teaches how to do something, how to do a webinar, how to do a sales presentation, how to write copy, whatever he's teaching you, the first thing he'll say is always keep the end in mind. So when you're engineering something, which is what he teaches how to do, keep the end in mind. Like, start with that. What do I want out of this? And then as you're piecing it together, you're even thinking about it. You might think, oh, well, this isn't going to get me what I want, so maybe this isn't the right thing to do. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying what you're doing is not the right thing to do. I just want you to make sure that it is. Engineer it. And one of the things, that I would start with that thought process is, okay, if I'm doing this to the wrong audience, that's not good engineering. So you either need to you've got a problem there. Your audience isn't right. You're spending the time to do this thing that is probably good, but the wrong audience is seeing it, or no audience really is seeing it that you need to see it. So that's a traffic problem. In ACT, that's the T. That's a traffic problem. You've got the wrong traffic. So you might have your analysis done right. You might have your creation done right, but your traffic is where your problem is. So like if I were to engineer that, I would go back to the beginning. I'd say, okay, who is my ideal client and where are they? I would pull all that out of the analysis. I know I've created the right presentation for them. So I'd go back and I'd say, okay, who are they? Where are they? Why are they there? What are they doing? What do they want? And then I would go hunting for traffic sources. Like they might be on the social media platform that you're on. They're just not part of your audience. They're not part of your viewing community. So in that case, to engineer that, you would be getting them to become your audience. So you might do that with paid advertising. You might do that with going into other groups where they are. This is a big one that nobody thinks about. There are big, massive groups on Facebook for almost everything you can imagine. You can go into those groups and you can't really promote. Most of them won't let you just come in there and openly promote to their audience. They don't like that. But you can be helpful. You can be beneficial. You can provide good content to them. And they love that. And what'll happen is you'll get a lot of people saying, hey, that Woody guy, he's really cool. He knows his shit. I want to learn about him. And they'll be perfectly okay with you saying, hey, if you want to learn more about me, I have a website. And now the engineering continues. When they go to your website, it's not just about, hey, here's Woody Blagman. It's, hey, here's Woody Blagman. Here's what I want you to do next. Here's what I've got for you. So here's what I've got. I'm it. Woody Blagman, that's what I got. Here's what Woody Blagman's going to do for you. Here's what I want you to do next. Now you're getting them to opt in. You're taking them on a trip. You're taking them on a journey. So you see how the mousetrap forms just out of that thought process? It's really simple too. It's just so many people make this mistake. They feel like because they're busy, they're being productive. And you can be busy and not have a plan and look like you'll look and feel busy, but you just won't wind up being productive. And that could be problematic. So,
well, the whole thing is a process. I mean, for the last year and a half, you're learning. I don't know how many people hit it out of the park instantly. I see a lot of people in Craig's group have been there for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you right now that the sooner you start engineering the outcome, the faster you will get there. And you're absolutely right. Very few hit it out of the park the first time through because they don't follow that formula. I can tell you, I have had one guy that absolutely knocked his business, his campaign, and his life out of the park within 1 month. And he did exactly what I told him to do. He did it. He did it fast. It blew my mind how fast he would implement. And, he was lived right down the street from me. He was my neighbor. And he wanted to do the apprentice thing. And he said, I only need to do it for a month. And I'm like, well, that's perfectly fine. But most people find that it's longer than a month process. Well, he was right. He did it within a month. It was amazing. He, we found his audience. We ran ads to it. It happened to be in LinkedIn. We actually ran LinkedIn ads. He got 3 customers, which was all he needed, and it changed his life. It was amazing. He's moved away. He's bought a bigger house. He's on fire. So it can happen fast. Don't put things in your head that says this has to take a long time. Like in NLP, that's one of the biggest things. Whenever you say something to an NLP practitioner, if they think it's not right, they'll ask you, when did you tell yourself that? If you've got it in your head that marketing is hard, when did you tell yourself that? When you got it in your head that it takes a long time, when did you tell yourself that? Because that's what we tell ourselves is incredibly powerful. When you when you change the channel, the picture changes. It's just like a television. If you don't like what you're seeing, you change the channel. Right? That's what you can do with NLP. It's like you have pre-programmed your mind to get what you're getting. And it's just like TV. If you don't like the station, change the channel.
Well, it's like cable TV. You might pay for a month or two and think all the movies are shitty. You've watched for 2 months. But
back to the moral of the story, you write your own program here, and I know some people don't like that. Some people are not made for that. I think you absolutely were made for this, Woody. But there are some people out there and they don't like responsibility. And again, this is not you, Woody. I'm talking about, nobody that is with us fits this. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of people out there that do fit what I'm going to say. And they don't want to take responsibility. They don't want to be, if something fails, they don't want it to be their fault. And that is not an entrepreneur. That is not a marketer. That's not a businessman. And that is what keeps, yeah, exactly. That is what keeps so many people in the box that most of them live in their entire life. Rather than making a risk, rather than, going out and risking failure, they will just stay in that box. And it's safe. I see a lot of people that are really good in school. A lot of times school will put them in that box and it will lock them in there for their whole life. Military is the same thing. Military is great. I love the military. I love everything about it. But a lot of times it puts people in a box because they are not responsible. They're doing what they're told because they're told to do it. Right. And if something bad happens, they don't have to take the blame for it because somebody told them to do it. Right. And a lot of times when they come out of that, like when people come out of school and they've been in school for a long time, they might be very well educated. They might be very smart. They might be highly skilled, but they might also lack common sense. They might also lack risk-taking abilities. It's like they got a lot of one thing, but none of the rest. And, business owners are not like that. They don't want to be stuck in something for a long time, doing anything for a long time. They want to move and jump and, get over fences and hurdles. And so.
Yeah, I'd shoot myself if I had a punch clock.
Yeah, I always tell everybody there's only one reason I would ever need a necktie. And that would either be they might put it on me when I'm in a box, or it might be the thing that put me in the box.
Now, hold on. I've worn a tie every once in a while. I'm not opposed to ties. Every once in a while, though.
And again, that's for me, and not to say that I haven't worn a tie on occasion, but I just look at that. That's the only reason I would actually need a tie.
Hey, John, you touched on something when I wasn't on the screen, but I was listening. Got a little late, but you touched on something that had to do with the pre-programming when we're kids, and as we're coming up, a lot of that we hang on to it, and that causes us problems in our adult life. One of the things that you reminded me of that I had to break out of was because I was not interested in math in school when I was really young.
Uh-huh.
I got in trouble. My my parents wanted to make sure that you knew your math, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. So it was boring to me. And so because I got in trouble so much over math, as I got into 8th, 9th grade, I told myself that math was difficult. It was too hard. It was all these things that I programmed myself to believe, all the way up to college. Well, actually the military. When I went in the military, I had to bust out of that. And in college, I'm in college and I'm taking statistics, and I'm like, this is crazy. I used to hate math. I used to tell myself I was no good at math. And then I'm here in statistics class and excelling. So what we tell ourselves, you're right. What we program ourselves to believe, we believe, and all of us have some of it.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I did not like math. I didn't like English. I didn't like any of it. In school, what I liked was wood shop. I liked to build stuff. I liked all the shop classes: metal shop, wood shop, auto. If I could build stuff, electronics, I was happy. And, it came to this one point where I wanted to sign up for multiple woodshop classes. And the woodshop teacher, he questioned me about it. He said, well, don't you think you should be taking, other classes? And I'm like, no, I don't really need any of that. And he sat me down and he said, well, what is it that you want? What do you think you're going to do after all of this? Why do you want this? And I was like, I was only, 15, 16 years old. He's asked me these questions. I said, well, I want to be in business. I want to build stuff. I want a business that manufactures shit. And he's like, that's awesome. He goes, I would highly encourage that. He goes, that will build you a fantastic life. But he said, but here's the thing. He says, you're not going to get there if you don't know math. And I said, well, how do you figure? I go, I can build wood, no problem. I can build anything anything you want, I can build it. And he says, yeah, but at some point you're going to have to sell it. And you're going to have to figure out how much it's worth. And you're going to have to estimate your costs. And I'm like, oh, okay. I see why I need math now. I don't want to lose money. I want to make money. So I need to know how much everything costs. I need those calculations of how much waste there is, so I know what things actually really cost me to develop. And I totally got it. And then he hit me with the English, and I'm like, I definitely don't need English. I can see where I need the math. And he said, well, here's the thing. He said, nobody is going to work with you if you can't communicate on an intelligent level. He said, so if your writing skills are below par, That's not going to give them confidence to give you those jobs. You might be able to do it, but if they're not going to give you the job, what's the point? So that's where those two key things, he showed me why I needed to learn English and math. And I took that to heart and I learned them both well. And it was simple math. I never went high in math, but those two things are incredibly important to me even to today. Like big ideas. What is that? That's English. That is communication. And it's not necessarily the way that they taught me in school. You'll notice I don't use proper grammar. I use grammar to convey ideas to people's minds. And it's highly engineered. But the only way I can do that is by understanding it. You know, like a lot of times you'll see in copy and headlines and stuff, it's not perfect grammar. Sometimes it's slang, but it's done in a way where it's intelligently done. So I really, that teacher, I still talk to him today. He's, he's getting up in age, but I still visit him. I still talk to him. In fact, I built him a website and he wanted to know how much it was going to cost him. I've been hosting his site for like 10 years. I've never charged him a dime. I said, what you gave me, I could never pay back. It's the least I could do for you. Anything you want is yours. It's like he's the Godfather. You gave me what I needed, and it was part of what made me who I am. So I'm forever in his debt for that. So his money's no good with me. Anything he would ever want, I would just do it for him. No questions asked, not even a thought about it.
I'd like that relationship with you, John.
Yeah. And it's like, I have that relationship with a lot of my customers, a lot of my clients. If you've ever been to my house, some of you have been to my house, you've seen like the majority of the stuff at my house, I didn't pay for. It was the customers just gave it to me. Like it's like a tropical rainforest. People that build water parks, they came and built water features in my backyard and all this stonework and all that stuff. And no charge. Or, in some cases, when I wanted something, bizarre off the wall, they got it for me at cost. But a lot of the stuff, they just came and just did it for me. So it's, and I didn't plan that, but I think it's part of like, you get what you give, and it's amazing. It's like I never counted on it, but it just happens. So, I treat people the way you want to be treated, and hopefully it'll happen. If it doesn't, don't cry over spilled milk. Just go on and continue to be who you are and do what you do. And I can almost assure you it'll come back around eventually. So cool stuff.
I have a question for you, John.
Okay.
But this is more of a closing the deal question, or
sure.
Maybe it's related to sales. How would you handle let's say you had a client and the client had left you, but you stayed in contact with that client, like I'm sure you have it with many clients.
Yeah.
And then they had something traumatic. Well, actually, they were a client, and then something traumatic happened, and so that there was a break in your getting together. So there was a break because something traumatic happened. But you stayed in contact via email, phone, text, and you got to a point where that client is now coming out of the trauma, is getting back on the horse, so to speak. They run a good sized company, and husband and wife own the company. However, he's in it and she's still struggling. but he claims he wants coaching again, but I don't want to oversell or overdo it. So he was supposed to come back in January. How much follow-up? You know, if you listen to Grant Cardone, he's like, follow up, follow up, follow up. But if you listen to some other people, they're like, follow up, but within reason. But nobody says what that really means. And
Gotcha.
I don't want to become a pest or alienate, but I would like to work with him again because I think I can add value.
Sure, absolutely. And that brings to mind a customer that I actually did the same thing with. I didn't abandon them. I actually, he had a tragic thing in his business where his financial outlook changed radically. He could no longer afford the services. I knew he still needed the services. So what I did was I scaled them back for him. And I said, look, I understand you're not going to be able to pay this, but you need it. And I don't want you to go without, because if you go without, you're going under. It's going to be over. And I don't want to be part of that. If I can help it, I'm going to help you. So he asked me, he said, what can I do for you in return? And I told him exactly. I said, you know what I do. You know how good it is. Who do you know that I could help? And he referred me like 3 clients that were bigger than he ever was or ever would be. And those 3 clients made me so much money. They're still clients today. They're still paying me. And I bridged his gap for like 2 years, just supplying him the service. I just looked at it as an affiliate commission. He had done me so well, I didn't need his money. But
this is not an issue of finance, because it's just not that. In fact, he said he wanted to come back.
Okay.
In January. His staff is not back yet. They're still working from home, but he expects to bring them back soon. But
Okay.
I was doing executive coaching with him. I started out with his wife a few years ago. Then I started coaching him, and then I started coaching staff.
Yeah.
But he did express wanting to come back. And he said in January, however, it's in February. You know how time flies when you don't close
Yeah.
the deal.
Well,
But I sent him a short video saying, hey, blah, blah, blah. And I know he's read it.
sure.
That's only been a day or so.
Okay. So here's the thing with closing a deal. And this really goes to anybody at any level for anything. It's the same thing. When somebody knows what you've got and they know they want it, they know it'll do good for them. You're to the point where, they should be pulling the trigger, right? Mm-hmm. And he's expressed that he wants to pull the trigger, but he hasn't yet. So the thing is, that tells me there is a hidden objection somewhere that is unstated, but it's there. There's a reason he hasn't pulled that trigger. So for you as a marketer or a salesperson, rather, your job is to find out why he hasn't pulled the trigger, unveil that objection, and educate him, get him beyond the objection, turn the objection into a positive, and then ask the question again, now the objection's gone. Are you ready to move forward? That's how you do it. You might find out that money is the objection, and the more creative you are of overcoming the objections, the more sales you'll have, the higher your success ratio. Like for instance, if he told you he couldn't afford it, there's 2 ways you can look at that. Maybe he doesn't have the money in his bank account, right? He physically couldn't, cut you a check for it. Maybe his credit line's maxed out. He can't put it on a card, whatever. That's a financial dilemma, so him saying he can't move forward yet, you need to understand why. That way you can come up with alternatives for him. Maybe a payment plan might work. If he's in a situation where, he does need what you've got, it could help him get back on his feet, and he needs to bridge the gap, you can come up with creative ways to help him do that. You could say, hey, I've got this special deal going on. Don't make him feel like it's a charity thing, because people don't like that. But offer it as a solution of, hey, I've got this special deal running. I'm doing this just for a couple of people, just because I've got some holes in my schedule right now. And I would really like to fill them, and I need your help. So now you're asking him for help instead of it looking like he's asking you for help and being a charity case. And you say, anybody that can bring me X client, I'm going to, instead of paying an affiliate commission, I'm going to give them the service for free and let them ride for free. As long as that person stays on the roster, that's a free ride for the one that brought them. That's an option.
Yeah.
I love that.
The more creative that you can get in your solutions, the more effective you'll be, more successful you'll be. But it all lies in understanding the problem.
Which is the next phone call, is to try to get to that.
Yeah. So that's your thing, is like, just ask them, hey, what's holding you back? I'm ready to go. What's holding you back? And he might say, nothing, let's do it. And when you ask him that question, this is another really key thing here. And this has to do with the human mind. When you ask him that question, when you ask him, are you ready to move forward? Or would you like to get started now? Don't say anything beyond that. Just shut up. Just zip it. And it might be really uncomfortable. It might be 10 seconds. It might be 2 minutes.
Holy Toledo.
No, really, it might wind up being 2 minutes, and it's going to be incredibly uncomfortable for you. I guarantee it. It's going to be the most uncomfortable thing you ever do, probably. But you cannot say a word. And the reason you can't is he's processing. And if you say a word, you're going to throw a wrench right in the gears, and you're going to break the process.
You're going to let the guy off the hook.
Yes. So
John, when I was doing real estate, John, I did exactly that. I asked that closing question. I shut up, and we sat there in silence for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And
there you go.
And he says, okay, let's do it. I said, I'm sorry it took me so long to figure it out, but I figured out how to do it. He needed 10 minutes to figure out how to do the deal, but it was talk about bone crushing silence.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's true. I had a guy that I was training to sell my stuff, and we were at a trade show, and I thought I had trained him sufficiently, and then I went away, and I was gone for a couple hours. I came back to the booth, and I said, how many sales have you got? He hadn't gotten any yet. And I said, all right, I go, just keep doing what you're doing. I'm just going to stand back here behind the curtain. I'm just going to listen. Just pretend I'm not here. Just do what you're doing. Don't change anything. And went back there and I listened, and he was just motor mouth. He would just talk to people until they've left. And I came out, I'm like, all right, come here, come behind the curtain with me, take a break. I said, you're not doing what I told you to do. I'm like, all you need to do is hey, here's what we've got. Here's what it's going to do for you. And here's how you get started. That's it. And I said, when you do that, you ask the person, would you like to move forward with that? And then you don't say another word. I don't care how long it takes. You don't say another word. I said, I'm going to stand right next to you, and that's what you're going to do now. And he did. We walked up, he sat down, person came up, he gave the spiel exactly like I told him. And he said, would you like to move forward with that? And the person was just looking at him. And he was getting really antsy, really fidgety. And I knew he was about to say something. And I put my hand on his shoulder just to calm him. Because I told him, I said, you do not speak. I put my hand on his shoulder just to calm him, just to keep him silenced. And it was almost 2 minutes. And I swear to God, he was about to come out of his pants. He was just like ants on his pants. He couldn't stand it. And the first thing the guy said was, do you accept Visa? So again, he was, like Richard said, he was just working out. Hey, how do I want to pay for it? You know, do I want to write a check? I wondered, you know, do they take Visa, MasterCard? So that was it. He was off to the races after that. He knew how to close the deals, and it was just that simple. So you really, you know, you just don't say a word after that. Let them work it out. There's a thought process going on in their head. They're talking to themselves. You know, it's the good guy and the bad guy. It's the conscious and the subconscious, and there is a conversation. Do not butt in. Let them two hash it out and get to the answer. It'll either be a yes or a no or a question. Like in our case, do you take Visa? Of course we do. Let's get the paperwork started. You know, that is probably the most solid sales and closing advice I could give you. I've seen it work in all situations. And like what Richard was saying, 10 minutes, that was probably a very high dollar purchase. It was a house. You know, he said it was in real estate. So the bigger the dollar amount, expect the longer that processing time to work. You know, if it's a $10 thing, it's an easy decision. It shouldn't take long, but it still might be, you know, 10 to 30 seconds. You know, even if it's $10, the guy might be thinking, oh God, what's my wife going to think if I come home with this thing? You know, whatever it is. But if they say no, if they say yes, you don't need to say anything else other than, okay, here's how we get started. Take them into the paperwork. Don't go off the rails here. This is not the time to go sideways. Continue the path. Have a process. Have a sales process. And it doesn't include shooting the shit. I see so many people blow it with shooting the shit. They get sidetracked. You know, people only have so much time. Like, you know, if your order process to intake a person there is going to be, you know, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it should take 5 or 10 minutes. It shouldn't take 25 or 35. You're going to wear them out. You're going to burn them out. You're going to make them think they made a bad decision and they're going to regret it because life is going on. Their friends are walking away. They got to catch up. Shit's going on. You know, their life is moving at fast pace. So don't like ball and chain them. Get them what they want, get them on to what they want to do next. So that's my 2 cents for a sales process. And you should have this in your business. You should have a sales process, and it should be bare bones minimum. If the person says no, that's what you do. If they say yes, you go right in, you complete the sales process, move to the next step, which is, you know, it might be your fulfillment, which is, hey, this is going to happen next week. Have a great time at the show. We'll see you next week. Let them go. Let them get on. Let them have an enjoyable rest of their day. Right? If they say no, this is the why in the road. If they say yes, you know what to do. If they say no, you're not screwed. All it means is they have an objection. And it's probably a hidden one. And if you don't find it, then you, like I think Richard said it, you let them off the hook. And you let them go away. And they won. You didn't win. You know, you want to win in this situation. So to uncover that objection, all you have to do is ask them. You know, if they say no, hey, what's holding you back? You know, this seems like it's really good for you. It seems like this would be exactly what you need. What is holding you back? And at that point, here's something that will probably happen. They will give you a superficial answer. They might tell you something that's not the real objection. And we just do this. It's just natural. So what you want to do is you want to isolate every objection. You want to acknowledge it. You don't want to tell them, oh no, that's not true. Don't do that. That's just argumentative and combative. acknowledge it, accept it, say, hey, I totally understand. I totally agree with you. But other than that, is there anything else that's holding you back? If that weren't an issue, would there be anything else that would hold you back from making this happen right now for you? And now you'll probably get closer to the truth. Now you'll probably get the real objection will unbubble. And now you'll know what's really holding them back. And again, you want to isolate that. You want to acknowledge it. You want to accept it. You want to isolate it. Go, okay, I get that too. But other than that, anything beyond that, you want to get them all out on the table because you want to get to the end of this game as fast as possible. So we want to know all the cards in the deck that are stacked against us. Once he says, nope, that's it. That's the only things. That's all that's holding me back. Just those 2 things or 3 things or 10 things, whatever it is. It's usually a couple. It's usually not the first one. The first one's superficial. So now in the ACT process, what do? We go to eliminate objections. How do we do that? Claim proof benefit. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, for however many objections are on the table, we claim proof benefit them. That's why getting these formulas in your head so you can do this shit on the fly is really important. If you can claim proof benefit somebody on the spot, you will turn the no to a yes. I can almost guarantee it. And you do that for all of them. And once you're done, here's your time again. Hey, now that you understand, this sounds even better for you. Would you like to move forward now? Almost guarantee you're going to have a yes every time. That's not high pressure. That's not like boxing them in. I mean, if they want to leave, then just let them go. I mean, don't hostily try and hold them to the table. But if you're having an intelligent, meaningful conversation with this person and you're truly trying to help them, I can almost guarantee you're going to turn the no's to yeses every time. And it's following the same formulas that ACT is to create a marketing campaign. You want to identify the objections, eliminate them, and then make your offer.
Okay.
It's a solid process, and any business that does not have this process is going to suffer or is suffering. And there's a lot of them. You show me a business that's suffering and I can show you the holes in it. They're missing pieces to this puzzle. So hopefully that makes sense.
Total. I'll take all that, wrap it up in my conversation this afternoon.
Yeah. And this stuff, you probably need to do this in real life. You need to do this face to face for a while till you get it. Then you can automate it. It's like I always say, anything that works in the real world, you can automate, you can put it online, you can evergreen it, but you got to get the process first. You can think about this stuff in your head, but until it works in the real world, we don't know if it's going to work online.
I actually never thought about a simple, so what's holding you back? I never thought about something that straightforward and simple.
Yeah, that's it.
Because that's really what you want to know. What's holding you back so we can work through that, whatever that is, so we can find out, are you ready to move forward? And
it's brilliant languaging too, because you're telling them they're being held back, right? Nobody wants to get held back.
Right.
It's brilliant languaging, and it's so simple.
Yeah, I got to write that one down. I'm glad you're recording this.
It's like you're helping them identify their demons that's hurting them, and you're going to unleash them. You're going to kill them. It's it is such a simple process. If something's complicated, my dad always told me this. He said, if something's difficult, you're probably not doing it right. And he said the easy, simplest solution is to find somebody that knows how to do it and just have them tell you. I mean, he told me that as a kid, and there is so much wisdom in that. It's amazing. It's unbelievable. Unfortunate for me, he had passed away before I realized all those lessons that he had given me. And I really, if I had the opportunity, I would ask him if he knew what he was doing when he engineered me, because that's exactly what he did, whether he knew it or not.
Ask him now, John. He'll tell you.
I kind of do already know the answer, but I would love to have heard him say it.
Got it, believe me.
Yeah, it's and I'd love to thank him for it as well.
Well, I wrote it down and I highlighted it as well.
Yeah.
Draw a little arrow to it too, Randy. Make sure you don't forget.
Say that again?
Draw a little arrow to it. Make sure you don't forget.
Yeah. Oh, the arrow was already there. It was right
Draw a
under.
second one to be sure, Randy. You didn't see it the first time.
Yeah, that's true because it was right under offer solutions. And so I wrote a big question. So what's holding you back?
Yeah, that is so simple, right?
Yep.
But think about it. It's highly engineered. It's not just any question.
Right.
It's not even like I've heard other people say, you know, what's keeping or why don't you want to move forward? Well, that's a bad question.
That doesn't sound as
You know,
nice.
that's combative. And it's very close, right? But it has a completely different meaning.
Mhm.
So the way you choose your words, it's like that teacher. That teacher told me how important the English language was. And I believed him. So that was pretty cool stuff.
Well, I thank you, and I've got to run to another meeting. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will catch up with you next week.
All right.
See you
Josh
next week.
made a comment, the same thing. He used to teach martial arts and still gets gift cards and stuff in the mail. It's awesome. When you teaching someone is the most powerful gift that you could give them. If I think back, like the way I am now is because somebody took the time to teach me something, that was very meaningful to me, even today. You can't unlearn something. So when you learn something good, it lasts a lifetime. People, hopefully people recognize you for that and thank you. Like what Josh was talking about. I get that the same thing. I get cards, letters, Christmas cards. It's really cool. It's a really cool feeling.
It is. So I have more of a Carter question for something you said earlier.
Okay, sure.
You said you had a client that you worked at a deal as long as they brought another client that was willing to pay X amount, you let him be on for free. But how would you structure that with Carter? Is that more of a gentleman's agreement?
With Kartra, you mean like paying for their Kartra account?
Right.
That's kind of on them. You don't really have control over that. This was services that I actually provided for them.
Oh, like the web hosting and all that?
Yeah, hosting, SEO, marketing assistance, all that kind of stuff. You can't really do that unless you want to pay their bill for them.
Right.
And, yeah, that's not unless they bring you a client that makes it, to where that's not a big deal. You could do that.
Okay.
But most people can afford the basics of business to stay in business. They just can't afford, sometimes when you'll take on a client, they'll be doing well and they can afford to pay for, luxury services. And then those luxury services hopefully turn into necessity services that they need forever. And that was what I was talking about. It was, it was their SEO stuff that I was doing for them. So I kept them up, kept them running, got them through their bad times. And, now they're back strong as ever. So, and they'll never go anywhere other than me. They'll never leave me. You know, if they did, I wouldn't hold it against them, but they just wouldn't. They're good people. You know, you don't do this kind of stuff for dirt bags. You shouldn't be working with dirt bags. You know, work with people of integrity and it will pay off.
Yeah. All right. I was just curious on that. That was just my question. I'll put my hand down now.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Anybody else for today?
Yeah, John, did you, you said that you were going to be getting that stuff put together for the offline sharks for the site pop retail presentations and stuff like that. Is that coming along? I'm not getting any emails from you on that. So,
it is, but I haven't. The only thing I've got up, I put the PowerPoint presentation up in the members area, so that's up. What I want to do is I want to actually record that, and it's interesting that you brought that up. I'm going to have to do that because I think I've told you guys the story. Like when the pandemic hit, I was on stage giving the pool presentation to the pool guys, and that was the day that everything got shut down. They closed the whole, Long Beach Convention Center, Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm. Well, those guys are doing their conference back at the Long Beach Convention Center, where I was escorted out, 2 years ago. So they're back on track for March, the same dates, almost identically. So it's been exactly 2 years. And they've got me up for 2 days. So I'll have 2 days worth of presentations to that audience. So I'm gonna have to sharpen the sword on that, work it out. And what I'm gonna do this time is I'm going to record it. I'm just gonna do a Zoom call, like before I actually give the presentation. I'm gonna do a Zoom call just to rehearse it, just to practice it. And I'll record that, and that will be what you guys can use for Evergreen. I'll make sure that I don't brand it or anything. I'll just put the nuts and bolts in. So that will be coming forth because I need to have it done by March. So I got a month.
The months are going quicker, John, for you. So you got to get on it.
I know, there's no kidding there. I should probably do it right now so I don't miss. Crazy stuff. But yeah, that'll be cool. It'll be the first time I've actually been in front of people live for 2 years. We'll see if I like it as much as I used to.
Yeah. Gregory's right. It's only 28 days and we're already 3 days in.
I know. That's frightening. All right. Well, we will go ahead and wrap up for today. We'll be back on next week, regular time. Okay. Until then, you guys get out there and practice your claim proof benefit. That's how you eliminate objections and create demand and desire at the same time. And your offer. And it's simply as easy as, would you like to move forward with that? And if you get a no, what's holding you back? That's it. That's some simple advice. Everybody do it. Come back next week and tell me how it worked for you. Let me troubleshoot the problems. All right, guys, have a great week. We will see you next week.
Hey, everyone, I'm on at 1 p.m. Pacific. Drop in. I got a great tip for you.